The silence was the first thing I noticed. Not the peaceful kind, but a heavy, suffocating silence that pressed down on me like a physical weight. It was 3:12 a.m. according to the dying glow of my phone screen, the only source of light in the cramped taxi. We were supposed to be 10 minutes from my destination, a quaint little B&B nestled on the outskirts of the city. Yet, here we were, the car idling in the middle of a deserted street, the driver's knuckles white on the steering wheel. "Is something wrong?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper in the oppressive quiet. The driver, a man with a weathered face and eyes that held a lifetime of unseen stories, didn't answer for a beat. He finally turned to me, his voice a low rasp. "Never seen this before," he muttered, his gaze fixed on the windshield. "Been driving this route for 20 years and this..." He trailed off, gesturing towards the empty street with a trembling hand. My heart hammered against my ribs. The street was unlike any I'd ever seen. It wasn't deserted in a normal way, like a sleepy suburban road at this ungodly hour. No, this was a complete and utter absence. The streetlights cast an eerie orange glow on the perfectly manicured lawns and quaint two-story houses, but there were no cars parked in the driveways, no lights flickering in the windows. It was as if the entire street had simply vanished. "What is it?" I asked, the words catching in my throat. "Where are the people?" The driver remained silent, his gaze unwavering. Then, a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye sent a jolt through me. A shadow, long and thin, darted across the perfectly mowed lawn of the house opposite. It moved with an unnatural fluidity, too fast for a person, too sinuous for an animal. "Did you see that?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. The driver finally tore his gaze from the street and looked at me. His eyes were wide, a sliver of raw fear flickering in their depths. He didn't answer my question. Instead, he spoke in a hushed tone that sent shivers down my spine. "This place," he rasped. "They call it the Hollow." The word hung in the air, heavy with unspoken dread. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a distant sound, a low, rhythmic chanting that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was a sound that scraped against my sanity, a guttural language filled with a primal hunger. The driver slammed the car into gear, the engine roaring to life. He floored the accelerator, tires screeching as the car lurched forward. But it was no use. The car sputtered and coughed, refusing to move. Panic clawed at my throat. I frantically fumbled with the door handle, desperately trying to escape the suffocating silence and the approaching chant. But the doors were locked, the driver's face a mask of terror as he struggled with the steering wheel. Then, I saw them. Figures emerged from the shadows, tall and gaunt with skin stretched taut over their bones. Their eyes like smoldering embers fixated on us like hungry predators. Their chanting grew louder, a horrifying chorus that threatened to shatter my very being. The driver let out a strangled cry as the figures surrounded the car. A long, gnarled hand reached through the shattered window, its touch sending a jolt of icy fear straight to my core. It wrapped around the driver's throat, squeezing with inhuman strength. He let out a choked gasp, his eyes bulging in terror. "No!" I screamed, clawing at the locked door, tears streaming down my face. The chanting reached a crescendo, the figures pulling backwards with a sickening snap. The driver slumped lifelessly in his seat, his neck twisted at an unnatural angle. The figures turned their burning eyes to me, their skeletal grins widening in a horrifying welcome. I knew then that I was trapped in the hollow with these things, these... whatever they were. The chanting reached a fever pitch, and the figures began to advance, their bony fingers scraping against the car's metal skin. This was it. This was how I was going to die. But then, as suddenly as it began, the chanting stopped. The figures froze in mid-stride, their heads tilting upwards as if listening to an unheard command. A moment of stunned silence followed. Then, with a collective gasp, they all turned and scurried back towards the darkness, disappearing into the shadows. I stared after them, my mind reeling. Several minutes crawled by, each tick of the broken clock on the dashboard an eternity. The silence that had been replaced by the chanting returned, thicker and more oppressive than before. The figures were gone, leaving behind a lingering sense of dread and a metallic tang of blood that filled the air. I slumped against the seat, my whole body trembling. The driver, his lifeless eyes staring vacantly ahead, was a stark reminder of the terror I had just narrowly escaped. Desperate for any explanation, I fumbled for my phone, hoping against hope that I would have a signal. No bars. Of course not. Panic threatened to consume me again, but I forced it down. I had to think. There had to be a reason for this. For the disappearance of the people, for the chanting, for those horrifying figures. Suddenly, a flicker of movement at the edge of my vision caught my eye. My breath hitched. In the rearview mirror, I saw a single figure emerge from the shadows. This one was different. Taller than the others, shrouded in a tattered black cloak, it moved with a regal grace that sent shivers down my spine. It approached the car, its face hidden in the darkness of the hood. As it drew closer, I felt an undeniable power emanating from it, a sense of ancient knowledge and a terrifying authority. "You are not meant to be here," it spoke, its voice a low rumble that vibrated through the car. Terror turned to a desperate hope. "Who are you?" I stammered. "What is this place?" "This is the Hollow," the figure replied, its voice devoid of any emotion. "A place where the forgotten dwell, a refuge for those cast out from the world of men." "What about them?" I whispered, gesturing towards the driver's body. "What did they do?" The figure remained silent for a moment, then spoke again. "They stumbled upon the Hollow, as you have. They were unwelcome guests." The coldness in its voice sent a chill through me. "Why are you letting me stay?" "Perhaps," it said, and I could almost swear I heard a hint of amusement. "There's a purpose in your intrusion, but be warned, the Hollow is not a place for the faint of heart. It will test you, reveal your deepest fears, and exploit your weaknesses. A horrifying prospect, yet somehow a beacon of hope in this nightmare. It was a chance, however slim, to escape this desolate place." "I'll stay," I said, my voice shaking but resolute. "But you have to tell me how to get out of here." The figure chuckled, a dry, rasping sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Leaving the Hollow is not so easy, child. You must complete a task, prove your worth to this place." Panic flared again. "What kind of task?" "That," the figure replied, its voice dropping to a whisper. "You will discover in time." With a final chilling laugh, the figure turned and melted back into the shadows. I was alone again, surrounded by the oppressive silence and the ever-present sense of unseen eyes watching me. Trapped in the Hollow, tasked with an unknown challenge, and haunted by the chilling memory of the skeletal figures. I had survived, but for how long? And what horrors awaited me in this place of forgotten things? The following hours crawled by. Exhaustion battled with the gnawing fear that clawed at my sanity. With no phone signal, and the car rendered useless, I was a prisoner of the Hollow. As dawn approached, casting an eerie orange glow through the deserted street, a low moan echoed through the air. The sound grew louder, closer, drawing me to the window. A figure shuffled towards the car, its back hunched, its movements jerky and erratic. It was an old woman, her face a road map of wrinkles etched by a life etched in sorrow. Her clothes hung in tatters, her eyes vacant and filled with a deep despair. Tentatively, I rolled down the window. "Hello?" I called out, my voice hoarse with disuse. The woman stopped, her head snapping towards me. For a moment, her eyes flickered with awareness, a spark that ignited a flicker of hope. "Help me," she rasped, her voice a dry whisper. They took everything." My heart ached for her. This wasn't a monster, it was a victim, another soul trapped in the Hollow's clutches. "Who took everything?" I asked gently. the woman's face contorted with a mixture of grief and rage. Those things, the shadows, they stole my memories, my life. My breath caught in my throat. Could this be the task I was given? To help this woman reclaim her stolen memories? Taking a deep breath, I made a decision. I can't get you out of here, I said, but maybe I can help you with them. The woman's eyes widened. A sliver of hope flickered within them. Follow me, she rasped, turning and shuffling back into the shadows. Hesitantly, I unlatched the car door, a fresh wave of fear washing over me. But the desperation in the woman's voice resonated deep within me. Stepping out of the car, I followed her into the deepening darkness, the silenza broken only by the rhythmic tapping of her worn shoes on the deserted street. The hollow may have held my body captive, but somewhere within its suffocating embrace I found a flicker of purpose, a chance not just to escape, but to help another soul trapped in its chilling grasp.